In this problem, we're given f of x is a rational function, g of x is a rational function, and we need to find the composition f composed with g of x and its domain. So let's start off by writing the definition of what a composition is. Remember, f composed with g of x just means f at g of x. And what we're going to do is initially we're going to replace g of x with its definition. So that means I need to find f at what is g of x? Here's g of x is 4 over x minus 1. So I'm going to have to find f at 4 divided by x minus 1. This is where it can get a little bit tricky because there are so many x's. But remember, f of x says f of something is 1 over that something plus 2. And who do I have to put in those red circles? 4 over x minus 1. So f of 4 over x minus 1 is just equal to 1 over 4 over x minus 1 plus 2. And that is the unsimplified form of the version of the composition, but we're going to have to simplify it. We can't leave a complex fraction in our answer. So looking at this complex fraction, I'm going to have to multiply numerator and denominator by the LCD. What's the LCD of all these terms? There's only one denominator, so it's x minus 1. So my LCD is x minus 1. And now what I have to do is I have to multiply my numerator by x minus 1. And I also have to multiply both terms in my denominator by x minus 1. Since my first term is a fraction, I'm going to multiply it by x minus 1 over 1. So multiplied by my first term in the denominator was 4 over x minus 1. Then plus 2, and don't forget I also have to multiply the 2 times x minus 1. And the reason we multiply by the LCD like this is so that this denominator reduces with this. And so my numerator, I'll end up with 1 times x minus 1, which is just x minus 1, all divided by this first term here. I'm going to get 1 times 4 is 4, over 1 times 1 is 1, 4 over 1 is 4, plus 2 times x minus 1. Now please don't be tempted to reduce this x minus 1 with this x minus 1. You can't do it because of this addition here. So all we have to do is simplify the denominator. So I'm going to get 4 plus 2, distribute the 2 in. 2 times x is 2x, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So I'm going to get plus 2x minus 2. So my composition is x minus 1 over 2x, and then 4 minus 2 is 2, 2x plus 2. So that is my composition f composed with g of x. Now all we have to do is find its domain. The domain comes from two issues. The first one, we have to look at the unsimplified form. Is there a domain issue in the unsimplified form? Yes, this x minus 1 here. Remember, we can't divide by 0. So I know to find my domain, excuse my terrible handwriting. From the unsimplified form, we know that x minus 1 cannot equal 0. That tells us that x cannot equal 1. And then we look at the simplified form. Is there an issue here? Yes, we have another denominator, that denominator cannot equal 0 either. So I've got, 2x plus 2 cannot equal 0. So that means that subtract 2 from both sides, 2x cannot equal negative 2. Divide both sides by 2. That says x cannot equal negative 1. So what is the domain? The domain is all real numbers except x equals negative 1 and x equals positive 1. So when you're finding the domain, remember that if you have two rational functions, you're going to have an issue that you can see in the unsimplified form and an issue you can see in the simplified form. If you just look at the simplified form, you won't see this issue of x not being able to equal positive 1.